All right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. I'd like to introduce our guests so we can get started. It's our pleasure to welcome to this program His Excellency Umar Namadi, who is the Governor of Jigawa State.
Thank you, Cyril.
For being with us, Mr. Governor.
Thank you very much, Cyril.
Let me also welcome to this program Professor Mansour Matazu. He is the Director General of NIMET, that's the Nigerian Meteorological Agency. Thanks for being here again.
Thank you, Cyril.
We did this some time ago, and
we're back again.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks.
Let me welcome to the program as well the Director General of the FCT Emergency Management Agency, Dr. Abbas Idris. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Right. And also here in the studio with us tonight is Kana Ahmed Abubakar, a geologist who's a regular face on Tuesday Live where we discuss these matters. It's good to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And joining us from Yenagoa via Zoom is Honorable Walamam Sam Igrubia. He is Chairman, Bayelsa Emergency Agency. Thanks for being with us tonight.
I'm happy to be with you, Cyril.
Right, thank you. Okay, so as you well know, at some point in time, this program is interactive. It means you can join in the discussion, but it's not that time yet. When it's that time, we'll remind you of the procedures and the process, and hopefully we'll get a robust discussion tonight. But back to the studio here, let's begin to take a look at what lies ahead. Today it's about preparing all the preparations that should go into everything that would mitigate disasters that we've seen in the past years. And easily in 2022, we would recall that there was a disaster like no other, talking about flooding all over the country. And this was not totally unexpected because NIMET had predicted and had set in so many warnings, but somehow things went awry. And so this year we have had predictions, and it's quite possible there would be flooding on a massive scale too. And we're already getting some reports from some states like Kebbi. Is there more to worry about? And let's start off with asking the Director General of NIMET to take us through this. Is there more to be worried about as the rains increase?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good evening, viewers. As we mentioned earlier, that for us in NIMET, we issued our forecast early enough to give all the relevant MDAs and all the 3 tiers of government enough lead time to prepare, integrate, and put all the information into planning purposes. So we did this precisely on the 24th of January, and which we also followed up, and we've been doing also updates on monthly basis, and then we're also integrating some additional impact-based forecast on 7-day basis and also on 3 days basis. So the summary of this year's forecast, as predicted earlier, hasn't changed. We're expecting the normal rainfall pattern here with pockets of some abnormality. And along the line, after issuing the forecast in January, also the sea surface temperature at the central equatorial Pacific Ocean that determine what is called El Nino, ENSO, which is a factor that determines the rainfall pattern over many parts of the world, including Nigeria, so which swiftly changed to El Nino, and this also will have some implication on the forecast. So, but we're still expecting a normal year with pockets of above normal in Borno, Yobe, Jigawa, and parts of Kano. And most of the central states are also going to have a normal to a little bit above normal, with pockets of below normal in the coastal areas, but that has no any implication because they do have longer hydrological growing season. But the implication here is that we're just beginning the active period now, to enter the active period, and that is July to September. We've seen pockets of flash floods, and the implication of El Nino is that there is going to be increasing temperature all over the globe. And the moment you have warming of the atmosphere, you tend to have more convective activities which will trigger flash floods. And that is what we've seen last week in Abuja. In a period of 7 hours, we received 50 millimeters of rainfall in Abuja. And that was what triggered the floods in Trademore and many parts of Abuja. Today also we had element of flash flood within Katsina town and some parts of Kano City. So we still we are not experiencing, we're expecting something higher than 2022. But when you look at floods, rainfall is just one factor. So if we do not integrate and especially handle all the other components, the land use component, the compliance components, etc., so we still tend to have these floods. So in a nutshell, this is the peak period, July to September, because there will be more rains now coming. The whole parts of the country is under moisture atmosphere, and we are having a lot of rainfall activities across the country. And not forgetting also, Nigeria sits at the downstream of most of these rivers in the River Niger and its tributaries and Benue. So we are at the collector point, and state like Jigawa, His Excellency, is also a low-lying state, and last year Jigawa got more than 50% increase in rainfall above annual average, and Sokoto got over 200. And these are all elements of climate change to which we have been also mentioning to the public.
Put simply, beyond just the amount of rainfall, other factors can combine to create a situation like we saw last year, flooding, flash floods that may lead to disasters. So, potentially vulnerable, that's what Jigawa is. So, Mr. Governor, since last year, the government of your state has not rested on its oars to address this matter. Perhaps we might begin to look at what you have set out to do, seeing these factors that DG NIMET has spoken about, and that there's still some potential danger ahead for your state.
Thank you very much, Siru. Actually, yes, since we have gotten the report of the annual flooding outlook and also the rainfall predictions, annual rainfall predictions by NISA and NEMAT, we try as much as possible to see what can we do as a state to ensure that we have reduced the impact to the barest minimum. Because last year it was too bad for us, and based on that, right from the day one, we feel it is important to start preparing. The previous administration also set up two committees. One, a technical committee on flooding, and also another committee that will assess the impact of the 2020 flooding and see how we can assist the victims. Now, I think the point at today's discussion is, let me concentrate on the technical committee on flooding. Now, this is a 22-man member committee with the expert from various fields. Some of them are not even from Jigawa State, actually, but they are expert in water resources and environmental management. They were selected, carefully selected, and they swung into action right from the time. And they were given a clear terms of reference. The clear terms of reference, which the summary is to work out how we can be able to reduce or control flooding in Jigawa State. That is summary, but the terms of reference is about 5-10 terms of reference. So, but in summary, all of them is what we aim at, is to see how we can be able to reduce the impact of flooding to the barest minimum. Now, this committee has been working since for almost 1.5 years now, almost 1 year now, and I think they have done a lot. They have come up with recommendations, both short-term, medium-term, and long-term recommendations. Now, the state government, we have started to look at all these recommendations, especially the short-term recommendations. Now, one of the recommendations was that there's need to dredge the river and also to clear the taifa grass that slow down the flow of water. Now, you need to understand that these rivers have silted for a long time and they have not been maintained, and therefore they are almost silted. So they need to be desilted. And now, so the committee said there is a need to do something about that. And what the state government did was we purchased 2 excavators, brand new ones. And these excavators have started work since on the 2nd of March 2023. We took this excavator to the downstream, that's around Guri area. So they started to clear the taifa grass and also dredge the river. Now, also, luckily enough, the Hadej Jama'ara River Basin Development Authority bought additional 2 excavators for us. So the two excavators started their work from the downstream. Now, the 2 excavators for Jigawa State started their work from Guri down to Wachala. Wachala is our border area with the Yobe State. Well, the other 2 started their work from the Guri downstream to the upper stream to along the Ringin local government area. So far, these machines have done a lot of work. They have cleared almost about 36 kilometers. They have dredged about 36 kilometers, which is a good work in about 4 months. As against what the World Bank did to us under trimming project. The World Bank last year have helped us almost clear about 95 kilometers. That is about in 27 months. But our machines have done about 36 kilometers now in 4 months. And they are working hard. At least every day they do 250 meters. Every day they do 250. So this is one of the first steps we have. That is the beginning, and we have other measures we have taken also.
All right. So we'll come to them as we go on the program. But yes, mention has been made that Abuja also had a taste of flash floods in the last few days. But in the past, it used to be many other areas of Abuja. Mercifully, this time around, it would seem as if there's some mitigation in those places that were prone to perennial flooding. But the DG of the FCT Emergency Management Agency is here himself, and we will take it straight from you on what the situation is like in the FCT.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that there are some mitigated factors that were taken in the past, especially the news was on Lokogoma every now and then. And when we took the drastic measure on Lokogoma, it's cleared now. That does not mean that they don't have some flash flood from time to time, but it is not affecting the public. And the trade more issue that we had now is because of a tremor is sitting right on the waterways. Water that is coming from the upper side, from not Lokogoma really, but from the other side of Lokogoma, goes straight to Trademore before it passes to Airport Road and get to River Gurara, where it ends before it gets to River Niger. So the entire estate is sitting on the waterways. Last year, we marked about 150 houses for demolition. But when we look at it with the experts, they inform us that even if we remove 150, we are not going to get what we want because the entire estate is seated. That means we have just expanded the waterway for the water to flow. But the real thing is that in the FCT, we start preparing immediately the rain ceases. So we go to new areas where we experience flooding to determine what was really the cause of the flooding. And when we get everything, we bring all the stakeholders to a meeting, and everybody has a role. and that role has to be executed. And because at the initial stage, we plan and we get our response plan by all the stakeholders, what you can do, what you can be able to do in case of flooding. And so if we discover that we have maybe box culvert is the cause of the flooding, so we call the FCDA immediately to go and change the box culvert to river bridge so that there will be a space for water to flow. And if it is really you put shanties or you build anything on the waterway, definitely is going to be removed. And that is why you see that every day there is demolition in the Federal Capital Territory. And because of the population explosion, and which is also causing the urbanization, we found out that most of the places have been occupied. And people are building recklessly, dumping refuse, and so the facilities are overstretched, because what you plan for maybe 1,000 people, you now have 1 million people. And so definitely you have that. And then there are attitudes of some of the residents whereby they dump refuse indiscriminately, and you see somebody driving a very flashy car that you can admire, but he will wind down and throw away bottles or even a pack of waste he collected from his house. And then the neighborhood as well, they throw away waste in the drainage, because Abuja is well plan. We have the drainages on the road, we have the manholes, and some of the manholes that were stolen, and people just throw away anything and block the manhole. But the thing that we are doing now is that initially we used to desilt the drainages on the annual basis, but because of the population explosion, now it is just a regular exercise for facility maintenance and management department to desilt. And also the Abuja Environmental Development Board, who are also working hard to ensure that they desilt all their areas. And then the Satellite Towns Development Department are also handling the satellite towns. So this is what is helping the FCT. And you see that the last rainfall, the flash flood was it only affected the Trademore estate, which is noted. In the FCT, we have two notorious places, Trademore and Lokogoma. So Lokogoma is having seamless listing now, so we don't have much problem with them, because we removed 250 houses on the waterway. So that gives us some kind of relief to other people there.
All right. We'll return to you in the meantime, but let's go over to Honorable Sam Igrubia, who's joining us via Zoom from Yenagoa. Well, Bayelsa, it's basically water all over Bayelsa. And unfortunately, the images we got from Bayelsa in 2022 were very sorry to say the least. What is the situation, and what is Bayelsa doing at this time to prepare just in case these factors that combine with rainfall happen again?
Well, Cyril, thank you very much for bringing me onto this program. I am elated to be on this program. From the 2022 floods we had, the experience was very, very gory, and it has taught us a very big lesson. And we are learning from that experience so much. After the flooding in 2022, we decided to go to the field to see what we can learn from what has happened to us as a people, knowing that Bayelsa is vulnerable. Anytime there is flooding, the end point is always Bayelsa. And so once the EFO is announced, we begin to go to the keyboard, the table to put all hands on deck, more especially from last year's experience. It was a tortuous one. It was something we needed to try as much as possible to prevent not to reoccur again. The state government is doing a lot right from this year, January this year, when the annual flood outlook the forecast was out. And we decided to do a lot of things by, one, identifying some areas we needed to channel the flow of water. Also identifying the areas we have box culvert to see how we can get a bigger culvert as a box or a flyover kind of where we have enough water flow. Clearing of the drainage has started earlier, even before what we normally do, because most of the time we wait till like June, July, August, then we start clearing the canals and opening the waterways. But this time around, we have started very early just to mitigate what we experienced last time. In addition, the governor has gone further to also set up a directorate for flood and erosion control. They have been working since after that flooding last year, and they have come up with a lot of recommendations that we are looking at. Earlier today, even I was with the governor discussing on some of these issues with the directorate on how to, see how we can channel. Most of the time, the channeling of the water is always a big problem. Because of the landscaping of Bayelsa, it is low. So even when we have anything to, like dikes, we build dikes like time sometimes to see how we can, mitigate the flow of the water or channel it from where we have so much population to see how we can divert the water. But all on the table, expecting the flood to come and see whether what we have proposed and what we have done will give us value. We hope and pray that it will. Okay. And also too, from our experience last time, that we were cut off from both the Delta and River State, and there was no way for even relief materials to get into Bayelsa. I think that was even one of the pathetic situations we faced when we started shouting for help, because there was no way to get anything into Yenagoa or into Bayelsa, because from the Delta, no way, from the East-West Road, from River State, no way. And the governor went as far as, airlifting rice, beans, foodstuff, and the rest from Lagos and from Port Harcourt. And the best option we had then was through the waterways, which it was also risky due to some factors even on the waterways. And it wasn't, so this time around we are planning even earlier to stock non-perishable food items to see how we can also store them and also prepare towards when it is close to, the flooding, to get those perishable things into the state so that we wouldn't experience what we had, because there was serious shortage of food and there was serious inflation. And so we don't want to repeat that. So we are doing a lot of things, a lot, reviewing the process over and over to see how we can really mitigate. We cannot stop it. It's just to mitigate the hardship we suffered last time.
All right.
And for once, I seriously hail my governor for taking those proactive measures to see how we can mitigate the suffering here in Bayelsa State.
All right. Good enough. You talked about other consequences, not the least, shortage of food. And that's a serious threat to not just people who are experiencing floodings perennially, but the country at large. But let's come to the geologists to help us understand what's going on here. I know this has been talked about so many times, but again, there are arguments among experts back and forth on the causative factors and the best approach. And if man can indeed change what nature has set out to do.
Thank you for this question. I want to recap from the earlier speakers and then trying to look at the previous discussions on this subject matter. Actually, if we were to look at it from the presentation for the FCT, the Trademore as a case study, and then the issue of the Lokogoma, I think the whole thing is going back to how Abuja was planned over 45 years ago. It was the targeted population, the issue of the master plan, the nature of the houses that are supposed to be constructed in terms of prototype, location by location, has to be taken into cognizance. Now the question now is, why is it that we don't have flooding within the last 20 years or 30 years in Abuja? Yes, it's because of the population. Are we the only city? If you are talking about in case study of Africa, is Abuja the most populated city in Africa? How are they mitigating their own? Which means we have to rethink, to look at even the basics. What is the nature of the geology of Abuja? Abuja is a basement complex. Most of the rocks that are here, schist, migmatites, these are rocks that after getting weathered, they form sort of regolith, like clay, laterite to clay. If you have laterite and clay, certainly there won't be percolation of water, there won't be infiltration. It leads to runoff. Now, if we have now, with the presentation of the DG NIMET, the rainfall has increased, and now the geology with time, the rock types are getting weathered. We are having a lot of runoff, which means we have to go back to the drawing board. Are we now to change the morphology of the drainage system of Abuja? Yes, because there is a natural drainage system when there was no population. Now, with more population, and you can't disperse people. Like what he has said, now you are demolishing people. You demolishing houses, creating more problems. These people have demolished the house, where are they going to go? You did that's almost a yearly, a routine event now. So I think my suggestion now is experts in Abuja is a multidisciplinary issue. The town planners, the geologists, the civil engineers, and other environmentalists within Abuja have to sit down. Like for instance, the case study of the Trademore we are talking about. Is it the final solution to evacuate people, to destroy those houses? Are there no other technology whereby we have presented severally in this program, whereby within the Trademore, as you have a sort of, because those structures didn't just come just within a night. People are there, and I expect that there are so many even experts within that particular environment. Well, I expect we should be able to have local solution for each part of each location. Is there no any way in that particular area whereby you can do more like horizontal kind of drainage system in such a way that, because you have Lokogoma upstream, water from there comes down this place. Already these people are there. Is there no way, any technology whereby you can create a sort of a vertical situation and a horizontal situation that will now go under the Trademore, so that finally you now interconnect with other estates that are within that area? Trademore is just one estate. There are several estates around that area, so that this water will be interconnected to some of the major drains you have mentioned. These are some of the things. So now that leads me to the issue of vulnerability studies. Each particular town, within a town, location by location, will have to create sort of vulnerability map, so that you have a standard master plan for flooding within a city. We have typological factors. Typological factor in the sense that in each town you have sort of undulation. The town is not flat. This water is coming here. Where do you go to? So it means now that different experts will have to come to design town by town, location by location, so that even if you do a particular location, even if it takes you 20 years, you should continue like that. Not what we're doing, we sort of reactive, we react based on impulse. So that is my suggestion and position in terms of that.
Just if I might take this a little bit further, you talked about the formation of rocks and
Yes.
clay,
Yes.
which after time makes it difficult for water to percolate
Yes.
through. Now, is there any known at this time remedy to that you can create a system where even if you had that formation, water can still percolate?
There is no, it's just geology, it's weathering, it's nature. So that's why you have to now bring the engineering solution. The engineering solution is to create where you have this runoff, where it can go down and don't go away from that particular estate. Or the another suggestion again is that we have to change our land use again in terms of building in Abuja. I've read a lot of books when Abuja was supposed to be created, even how it was started, it has even been remodeled. Yeah. Even some certain places in Abuja I don't want to mention, they are not in the original master plan of Abuja. And you can't move those particular places even within the Abuja. So is there no way, maybe for instance, the trade we are talking about, if instead of sending those people away, you do specific study on that area, if it means going up to certain level, because most of the houses there are not more than 2 or 3 story buildings. Most of them are just bungalows. Is there no way you can still have the houses, you have wider areas, like the case study we have even in the Netherlands, which we discussed several years, you do canalization. Instead of dispersing these people, because you disperse them, you are creating social problem. That's another issue entirely.
All right, we'll return to that, but let's come back to the other matter, which also borders on human activities. And Mr. Governor, you have just explained how much the government has put into desilting dredging. And another factor has been mentioned here is human activities, which calls for a change of attitude, more sensitization. How far are we going on that? Because even in, well, you heard it in relatively modern cities like Abuja, enlightened people dump refuse indiscriminately, they toss stuff out of moving vehicles, and everyone treats the environment with such disdain.
Well, you see, actually, we have done a lot of sensitizations and public enlightenment immediately after the receiving of the report of NESA and NEMAT. So we have engaged in a lot of sensitization to sensitize our people. They need to clear their drainages, they need to do a lot of things so as to ensure the free flow of water. Now, in addition to that, also as a government, we have as much as possible try to construct culverts and drainage in towns so as to ensure that there is a free flow of water. This we have done a lot within this period. Also, in addition to that, part of the recommendation given by the technical committee is that there are some flood-prone areas that we need to engage to do some embankment to ensure that we have protected the communities. That work we have been doing for long. I think from then to now we have covered almost 85 to 90 kilometers of embankment. And the technical committee gave a clear specification of this embankment. It's not just you do it anyhow. They give a clear specification that the embankment should not be less than 2.5 meter height, and the thickness should not be less than 4 meters. And based on that specifications, we have done a lot. So far now we have covered about 35 communities within 8 local governments within the state, and we have covered a distance of about 85 to 90 kilometers. This is also to ensure that, to tell the people that, because you see most of the flooding we are experiencing, like I said, yes, it requires a lot of cleaning and construction of drainage, but it's purely due to overflow of the river. Now, for instance, if we can take it back to history lane, memory lane, you see the Tiga Dam and the Chala dams. These dams originally were constructed to hold about 2.9 billion cubic meters of water. But as at now, they can't do that because they have silted And since they have silted, now as the recent survey showed that the capacity is only about 2.2 billion cubic liters, meaning that about 700 million cubic liters of water must flow out.
Okay.
So when it flows out, it will destroy farmland, it will destroy houses, and it will do a lot of things. So that is why it is important that the federal authorities understand the implications of all this and do something about it. Because like now, this clearing we are doing, the money we are spending, purchase of the excavators, and also the money we are paying every day for these people is heavy. It's beyond, and we are trying to cover 300 kilometers. Trimming has done 95 kilometers. The total kilometers between the upstream area in Jigawa to the downstream area in Yobe is about 418 kilometers. And today, the trimming project has done about 95 kilometers. We took them about 27 months to do that. 95 kilometers. And also we have started now with our 4 machines. We have so far done 36 kilometers within 4 months. And it means we have almost 323 kilometers to go. And this is something that must be done to save the situation. Because today, with what we have done, the clearing and also the embankment, which has covered about 90 kilometers, which is good at least, and with our specification, we feel that our people will be saved a little bit. But that is not the end of it. That is not the end of it. You see, the end of it is that we need to find out the real causes of this problem, and which are clear. Because, for instance, at the upstream sector, at the upstream down, this river has silted at the upstream. And at the downstream, there's also taifa grass, which also slow the flow of water. So, from the downstream, the water will not flow. From the upstream, it will not flow because of the silting, and this one because. So, at the midstream, the water must come out, and it will overflow, and then it will affect people. So, this is really what we need to understand, and this is really what I think. You see, I think the authority need to take the warning given by NESA and NEMAT, not telling the state, look, there is going to be rain, there is going to be flood. No, but what are we going to do as a country to help these situations? Because the experts need to sit down and advise government. Tell government, look, this issue of desilted rivers, these rivers have not been maintained for quite a long period of time. And the state cannot continue to do this because they have limited resources to do this work. Now, covering 326 kilometers now is not an easy thing, but it's something that must be done to save our people. It's something that must be done. So I think we need to, the authorities that are concerned, is not an issue of, okay, look, this is what will happen. But the question is, what can we do to reduce the impact of this? Because telling people that, okay, public awareness, that there are something that public awareness cannot solve. You must do action. So, and this is what we are doing in Jigawa State, the action. But we have a limitation.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Governor. I was going to say, how much of intergovernmental and interagency collaboration has been on since this was identified?
Yeah, you see, interagency collaboration within the state, we have a lot.
Right.
Because now, for example, the committee that we involved in doing the embankment is interministerial committee.
Okay.
Water resources, environment, works, agriculture, and due process. They are all involved. The subcommittee, this is a subcommittee of the main committee.
Okay, within the state.
That is within the state. But intergovernmental affairs, we have been talking to Yobe State. Look, this issue, this is what we are doing on our own part. Because the issue is, assuming that we are able to cover the 300 kilometers to reach Wachakala in Yobe State, the issue is that by the time it reaches there, it will overflow. again.
So
Yobe will need to do something again to take it further.
Now I'm getting it. Yes, did you name it?
Yeah, actually, His Excellency mentioned a very pertinent point that at the federal level we've been crying for this, and that is vertical collaboration between the central government at the federal level with the state governments. Because whatever happens, we're just looking at Abuja as a federal capital, but most of these disasters happens at the last mile. And these last mile communities are in the districts and the local government areas. And we have abundant information policy advisories at the federal level, but we find it at times difficult reaching out to states, I must mention, because during the release of our forecast, which deliberately we do it very early in January, so that we give 4-5 months lead time, and we invite all the governors of the country plus 10 major stakeholders in each state, ministries of agri, water resources, environment, water board, and other relevant SEMAs at the states. And during the release, we also preach and also plead that state governments, please, our doors and windows are open for collaboration, so that what we do at the national, federal level here, we can also downscale to state specific. What His Excellency just mentioned will quickly be solved by providing state level focus for Jigawa. I could recall while teaching in the university, we've done a farmer's guide project in 2007 during the sugarcane production. And in all the 25 local governments, we've got information on all the climatic parameters during the rainfall season and even during the dry season, so that even to give farmers on the rainfall requirement to avoid drought during dry season. So by the time these federal agencies do a state level forecast, they will link the forecast of that year with the socio-economic activities, because we send our expert in advance to do baseline surveys and desk work at the state level by interacting with the state governments. So within a week or so, we can come up with a document and policy and advisories, sectoral advisories, because we want Nigerians not to look at the negative side of climate always, please. And that is why our forecasts go beyond extreme events. We give details of the elements of weather, including rainfall, and then also provide advisories that if you do this, you can, like for agriculture, simple uptaking of our information, you could get more than 35% increase in yield, and you could avoid extreme events and loss of crops by about 95%. So by the time we have within this January to April up to May, we can downscale all this. We've signed MOU with Federal Ministry of Agriculture. We've been doing this with some states. But our main entry point is the state governors. And we always appeal. We visited the Nigerian Governors Forum 3 times and expected that during the induction course, we've pleaded for NIMET, NISA, NEMA to be included in the program, so that we sensitize the new governors coming. Because what all the panel members mentioned here is just micro watershed approach, whereby we look at the community the way it is and now plan at the community level, and then we can each state come up with what is called community-based flood early warning system, being managed by the community themselves. And I'm sorry to mention, a lot of land use dynamics happened in this country, and one of it is deforestation, and that is what is causing all the siltation that His Excellency made mention. About 400,000 hectares every year of forests, trees lost in the country. And I participated in a research, very unfortunate to mention, but I want to mention it here, that as a result of massive deforestation in Nigeria, presently satellite pictures depicts that extreme northern Nigeria has less tree density species than extreme southern Niger because of this. And what they do there is what they call farmer managed natural regeneration, and try to do a lot of reforestation and afforestation project. And when we do this, we stabilize the ecosystem. As long as we don't, we have to look at the society, the whole environment as an ecosystem, as made mentioned by other panel members. And with this, we are very ready at the state, at the federal level. Our doors are very open. Even last week, we were in Uyo with the NEMA and NISA, whereby we did the state level downscaling.
Well, this will also throw up another angle, because how do you begin to balance development needs where you have to fell trees to build cities, build roads, and you interfere with the entire ecosystem of the... Well, it might also lead to a...
Yeah, actually, if I mention that even in the new building code of Nigeria, there is component of climate chapter there. Right. And indeed, for each eco-climatic region in the country, there is specifications. And also in NIMED, we have 130 years data for building and construction industry to access, so that you now do the design and of structures to withstand the extreme events, which we see it's increasing recently. Thank you.
All right, we have other reports on the subject matter, and we'll take the first one here from Lagos.
Lagos State, a mega city with a population of more than 20 million people, is surrounded by water, with most of its residents living close to beaches and flood-prone areas.
Whenever rain falls, sincerely speaking, we experience floods all over, everywhere.
Drainages are blocked, so they need to make the drainages bigger, wider. The drainages are not effective.
Relevant authorities say they are currently working hand in hand with about 25 communities identified as flood-prone areas to reduce the effects of flooding in the state.
Immediately after last year's rainfall, we reviewed our actions, identified gaps, and based on these gaps, we looked at those communities that were mostly affected and the actions that were needed to prevent reoccurrence.
Wetlands should also be evacuated. I mean, places that are natural buffers for excess water in the ecosystem should be returned to what they are as natural buffers. And I believe strongly with these measures, the government would have been able to a large extent, reduce by a great percentage the incidence of flooding in the state.
Despite awareness campaigns to check indiscriminate disposal of waste in drainage channels to ensure free flow of flood water, the challenge persists.
There must be an enforcement that is not only for the people, but for both the government and the people, so that when somebody fails this enforcement, it's not going to be like, oh, I know somebody somewhere that can save me.
Respondents insist that proper implementation of laws and more proactive flood control measures would go a long way in mitigating the devastation associated with flooding in the state. In Lagos, Diana Ajale.
All right, let's take this next one from Kebbi.
As excessive flood in Kebbi State brought about colossal loss of homes, farmlands and produce worth millions of naira, especially in riverine communities who are predominantly farmers.
In fact, the flood affected me seriously. In 2020, I lost more than 200 bags of rice.
All these are attributed to dumping of refuse on waterways, which calls for the need to work towards mitigating future occurrence of the natural disaster. To actualize this, the Kebbi State government and other stakeholders have set motion rolling to prevent such calamities in the 14 flood-prone local government areas in the state.
You know, government have tried by construction the drainages, but at times people used to neglect the drainages. They will make use of that drainages instead for the flowing of water, but they will use it where they will use to dumped their refugees all the time.
Recently, in order to complement government efforts towards mitigating the flood, stakeholders are intensifying efforts to sensitize the public on preventive measures.
Stakeholder meeting is to prepare the minds of our communities on the dangers of flooding. And with the NIMET report we have received, that this year's rainfall is going to be more than what we witnessed last year. So we felt we need to prepare the minds of the communities.
We have a role to play to ensure that our environment is kept clean. We shouldn't dispose our waste in the drainages. We should take our waste, refuge waste, to where the government have provided.
The massive sensitization will no doubt yield a positive result in mitigating flood disaster in the state. In Birnin Kebbi, Abdul Mohammed Bawa.
All right, from those reports, it's evident that human activities that play a great role in causing these flash floods. But there's also the question of soil degradation, and now we're coming back to the geologist here. There's also the matter of soil degradation, an after effect of flooding, and some would say you can, even after having a disaster, you can turn things around and use what has been devastated to build.
Yeah, it all depends on how you look at it. Jola inter alia said the issue of case study of life, Abuja, and then you look at different locations where you have a basement complex. The chances of the degradation in terms of soil takes longer time. But if you are in a place like Maiduguri, for instance, or most part of eastern Nigeria, let's say Anambra State, where it's sedimentary in nature, you know, if you have excessive rainfall, that gives you to erosion. That's the next factor now. When it leads to erosion, then it affects the building, then it affects the agroecological potential of such particular areas. So I don't see any relationship whereby having the devastation, then the debris could be used for construction. Rather, it is positive towards agriculture in most cases.
For agriculture.
Some of the material that comes out, especially in the Bentic zone, if you have a riverine area, it has been brought and then deposited on the land. It enriches the agroecological potential of such areas. But in terms of civil work, I'm not too sure, because there will be accumulation.
Yeah, not civil works basically, but in terms of agriculture.
Yeah, it's possibly for agriculture. And even the agriculture, then there's another relationship again, especially with the NIMET and then NISA prediction, and then look at what they've done as a lesson from last year to now, whereby National Committee on Flood was set up by the last administration, chaired by Professor Adanu, and it was even interministerial. A lot of experts are within there. They worked, took case study by case study, location by location. So if we are to relate it to presentation of His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Jigawa State, the solution they are bringing, which is within Jigawa, might not solve the entire problem. If he can avail himself with the work of that particular national committee, which is all encompassing. Because Jigawa is just a single unit as a state. I will present it in this program. Jigawa, Yobe, Maiduguri, Kano, they are all under hydrological area 8. So the solution is based on hydrological areas, because as you are solving this problem, you are creating another problem. So it shouldn't be a state affair. However, even within the national committee, there are particular aspects that is national. There are aspects that states should handle. So I think there is a need, although he mentioned the issue of Jamara River Basin. Jamara River Basin, Chad Basin are all integrate of that hydrological area 8. So that's particularly for that. And different locations with different solutions. So I will indulge the Jigawa State government to liaise with that Federal Ministry of Water Resources under that particular committee to see what has been done for that particular corridor. It will now reduce their work and then be able to create more synergy in that aspect that states are supposed to handle. Because Kano is up, it comes to them, finally goes to Yobe, empty to the Chad Basin. So it is a suggestion in that respect.
All right. Well, at this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, the phone lines will be open. That means you can join in the conversation in the studio. But stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, this part of the program, you can join in the conversation. The phone lines, the numbers will be on your screen. We advise you take advantage of them if you have something to contribute to the discussion. We always say this every Tuesday. If you're calling in and your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to go straight to the point and not to bother too much about the greetings. A simple hello would do. Whatever issues you raise, our guests here are willing to take a look at them and dissect them appropriately. So we start up the segment now with another of our reports, this one from Enugu.
Going by the predictions of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, and the annual flood outlook of the Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency, NISA, Enugu State is listed among the states to witness imminent flood disaster. However, officials of the National Environmental Management Agency, NEMA, and Enugu State Environmental Management Agency, SEMA, said that they have not recorded any incident of flooding this year. They listed Ozowane, Nkanu East, Ogu, Aniri, and Soka among the flood-prone local government areas in the state. According to them, measures have been put in place to control and mitigate the disaster.
This is like Ozowane, Aniri, Ogu local government. We work closely with the State Emergency Management Agency, SEMA, to carry out grassroots disaster management programs. The measures can be taken to reduce its impact, such as early warning messages and the actions.
We have also started radio jingles, sensitization programs. In that radio jingles, we tell people things to do, the do's and don'ts. You understand? The salting, the drainages, ensuring that they don't drink water from the flood waters, ensuring that those who are staying at the very flood-prone areas should evacuate peradventure. There's a sea rise, like those in the riverine areas, also one to be precise.
Worried by the predictions of NIMET and NISA, the Enugu State government swung into action with the inauguration of task force to assist government control and mitigate the impact of flooding and the likelihood of the disaster in the state. The task force is expected to identify buildings on waterways, evacuate illegal structures, and block drains. Residents are advised to deseal their drainages and water channels to enable free flow of water. In Enugu, Chidi Okrafo.
From Enugu, we go over to Calabar for the next report.
It is one of the states in the Niger Delta region of the country, which is naturally a rainy state, especially during the rainy season. And given this geographical position, most of the states are often faced with flood devastation, where household properties and farmland are always destroyed, especially when the flood is severe, which was the case in 2022, displacing thousands of people. And now, in view of the 2023 NIME prediction of expected severe flooding in Cross River State and some part of the country, Governor Bassey too has called on residents of the state to cooperate with relevant government agencies by aligning themselves to flood mitigating guidelines and stop indiscriminate dumping of refuse in drainages. The governor, in a press statement by the Chief Press Secretary Emmanuel Ogbeche, warned that defaulters will be prosecuted according to the environmental laws of the state. Already, disaster managers are calling for collective effort of members of the flood-prone areas to reduce the severity on flood communities, as those in flood-prone areas are advised to relocate from the areas.
When we got the annual flood and the seasonal climate prediction from the federal agency started with the responsibilities to make predictions, we have to call for stakeholders meetings to see how we can work together, sensitize those living in these areas. But they were categorized to highly, moderately probable areas.
Victims who say the government has responded by giving them some palliative, however, appeal for support the areas of farm input as they have made necessary adjustments to mitigate the impact of expected flooding this year.
We have been ravaged with floods several years, but we have never seen the kind of love and supply of relief. So we want to thank you.
It has not been easy since the flood. I don't need to farm in those areas. If government can come to my aid and maybe give me assistance, I can relocate.
With the persistent rain in the flood-prone communities of Cross River State, disaster managers in the state still insist that adherence to pre-flood management strategy remain key in reducing the rate of casualties and devastation experienced last year, as government assistance may never be enough to meet up with the impacts of disaster. In Calabar, Oba Hyacinth.
All right, back to discussions here. At this point, let's get back to our guest from Yenagoa, Honorable Sami Grubia. And okay, all right, okay, we'll try and get back to him just as soon as he's back up here. But then, DG FCT Emergency Management Agency. You hear in some of the reports, they talk about relocating. People should move from one place that is prone to flooding to others. What are the options for a place like the FCT? What would you recommend? And it's always been said that it's one of the most difficult things to do, to get people to move from where they have already established. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, we don't have that much problem in the FCT because, like we said, we have already taken the hazard mapping of the entire FCT. So we know where flood is highly probable and we know where it is not. And we have identified all the flood-prone areas. And if you go to the city, you will see our signpost where we identify and we mounted the signpost, especially because most people drive on the water when it is raining, and most of them lost their lives. In all the deaths were recorded as a result of flooding, where people driving on the water when it was flooding, or when it is raining. So having identified and took the hazard mapping, it becomes easier for us. And apart from the hazard mapping, we also did what is called the vulnerability and capacity assessment of the particular location to know whether they can be able to really handle themselves in terms of any disaster. And if there is none, the government is urged to put the facility. We identified like the clinic and how to also do their own self-response before our arrival. Not only that, from within the community we also identify the divers within the community, and we engage them and train them with the modern training and give them the modern equipments, because they use calabash and jerrycan to do the rescue. So we give them a life buoy, life jacket, and so many other things so that they can help the community. And we sensitize them sector by sector or community by community. We have to educate them, and that is why you hardly hear about flood in the area councils, because they respond to our early warning. When we receive early warning from NIMET, we take it to the community. So they obey the early warning more than the people in
what you're saying is compliance in the area councils
are more.
It's far higher than what you get from
from the city center.
You know, the city center.
Yes.
The big elites who live in the city. Who
exactly. If we hear any deaths in the area council, you find out that the children who went to the river to swim, and before they get rescued, they get response, they die. So that is very clear. We have to embark on sensitization. At the moment, we have about 5 jingles running in different languages: Baji, Hausa, English, Yoruba, Igbo. It's going on, and we set it community by community, target the audience based on that, and we do town halls meetings with the chiefs and the emirs, the traditional rulers, and with other volunteers whom we have always trained. Also, they speak the language and they communicate based on the languages. And every early warning we receive from the NIMET, we quickly send it out to these communities through our volunteers, and that is how we get better response.
Okay, I wonder if we have Honorable Sami Grubia back on now. So, right, so thanks that you're still with us here. Well, we were talking a moment ago about relocating from flood-prone areas to higher grounds or places that are less likely to be flooded. But in a state like Bayelsa, what are the options? Where are those places that you can say are better placed? And how do you deal with people and the resistance?
Well, in Bayelsa, it's a different ballgame. A lot of resistance from the native from their homeland. Most of them don't feel very comfortable relocating them from their ancestral land. And what we decided to do was, within a community, to identify higher lands. Unfortunately, last year, the higher lands were identified before 2022 flooding. The flooding of 2022 surpasses the higher lands we even identified. So it made it very difficult for us to also see how to handle the situation. So it was like majority of them, more especially women and children, were practically moving to the urban center, which was very difficult because there was no road. You have to do that with either a canoe. So what basically they did was to build, there is this floating wood we have here in Bayelsa. And what they did was to put a small hamlet on that floating wood. So as the water rises, the floating wood rises with the water level. And so that is how a lot of people started managing. It was very difficult to move them from their ancestral homeland to anywhere. The only area where we really achieved a lot in trying to move people from one point to another was in the city centers, more especially those areas that were highly flooded, creating IDP camps and moving them to that point. But still, human nature, and they try to be as much as close to their houses, because there were other also activities that were also happening, vacating your house and leaving it, and at that point insecurity was also a major challenge, where people were breaking into people's houses knowing that there was no human present there. So we had a lot of challenges where you need to move people, and people are not ready to move even to a higher ground because they want to stay closer to their houses and their properties. It was a very big challenge. It was a very big challenge.
Okay.
And we are praying that from the forecast we had that this might even be worse than what's happened in 2022. We have identified new higher lands. We hope and pray that it doesn't surpass what we have in 2022 to put us to that same situation we find ourselves last year.
All right, Mr. Governor, I suppose we might put the same thing to you. The question of resistance to movement from where people had, well, you hear them say the ancestral land, the people have this sentimental attachment to those places, even at the risk of their own lives. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think it's a general phenomenon that people find it difficult to live where they are to a new place. In most cases, you see these areas already we have a lot of plans that, okay, please, this area is becoming a problem because it's a yearly event. So why not we move you from this place to this? Even though we know as a government that will be very, very expensive for us. But at least saving the life of the people is critical, is very, very important to us. But the fact that they don't want to move. Let me just give you a clear example. During 2022 pledging, there's one area within the capital, just a village closer to the state capital. The whole town was flooded. The entire town completely submerged. So the people were moved to primary schools, but fortunately for us, because it's a state headquarters, we have IDP camp, the one built by the federal government. That IDP camp is fully furnished. There is water, there is electricity, there are beds, and everything is there. So we went and pleaded with these people. Okay, instead of staying in the primary school, why can't you go and stay here until such a time when this place will be better for you? They refused. They refused because they feel, okay, if they move to that place, it will take them longer time for them to come to their farm. It will take them longer time for them to come to meet their other brothers. They refused entirely. In fact, we resulted into talking to the emir of Abuja, who sent in a senior councillor to come and talk to the people, together with the district head, with everybody. The people resisted. So it's a clear case people doesn't want to move their ancestral reform to somewhere else. But you see, and sometimes you find it difficult to convince them. But some people, at a point, if they see it difficult, they'll be willing to move. And those that are willing to move, definitely government will resettle them to some area, to some other places, which is better. But it's difficult to find those that are willing to move. That is the problem. So they will prefer to stay in primary school, and when the flood is over, they will go back and start rebuilding their houses.
The other aspect which should be of concern to many of the areas that are prone to this flooding is the question of loss of food, crops to floods. And when this happens, it puts pressure on food security. And that's why we brought up the talk about how you can convert the residue from all those floodings and all that to beef up production. And that hasn't been an easy thing for the country to adopt in itself. States are beginning to see the wisdom in collaborating, because you solve one, just like you raised there, if you solve one issue here, then you increase the problem for your next neighbor, your neighboring state. But now I want to look at the role of academics and geologists, experts in different fields, such as Dr. Kana here, and wonder if there has been any form of deliberate attempt to to study, come out with research findings that can. You talked about homegrown solutions. Are we seeing this from our academics, our scientists, our researchers?
That question. There has been, let me key into one of the programs the Excellency mentioned, the trimming project. I think in under trimming 1, they produce some PhDs and masters in the case studies of that particular trimming 1. But the question now is, you have produced a PhD or a master's as a product of research. The implementation aspect has always been the problem. Even this National Committee on Flood we are talking about, they have all this data with them. Now the question now is, you have set up a committee, they have proposed solution, those from the academia, those from the industry, etc., etc. But the issue now is, the implementation requires funding. What has been the deliberate effort to be able to get this money, to be able to withstand this marathon? Because it's supposed to be a marathon race. You start for a very long period that will take not less than 30, 40 years. So the issue there is that a lot of PhD masters have been produced as a product of most of these projects. If you look at even from the 60s up to date. But that synergy between government, industry, and then the academia has always been the problem. So this has been a major challenge. You produce a report, produce PhD during the trimming project. What has that, have you translated that particular product of research to practicals?
In fact, we'll take the question to the DG NIMED, being a university lecturer yourself, now as DG NIMED. What's the collaboration you have with, the academia, and what have you challenged them with in seeking solutions?
See that there's a fairly good collaboration in providing local solutions to most of our challenges. And when I came to NIMED, we tried to establish collaboration with, as at present, we've intervened in more than 120 higher institutions. 60 of them are federal, states, and state universities, including private universities. And based on this, we've come up with a solution using global and regional literature, which we now downscale to our local literature. Last time I came with a book we published on climate change indicators in Nigeria. So based on that, in each sector, especially agriculture, we came up with what we call climate smart agricultural practices. And we link the forecast with the best method that will now utilize the prevailing rainfall conditions of the area. And I'll give an example, like in the north. There's a method they call half moon. When you envisaging dry spell, and such farmers practice that half moon is by creating a heap of sand within your plot of land to create something like half moon. And this soil will now trap moving runoff and reduce general runoff that will now generate into floods. And by that you are increasing moisture percolation within the plot, and you retain the moisture, and also it does another additional trapping of sediments, and that trapping of sediment would increase also the fertility of the soil. So by doing that, you are delaying floods from farmlands, you are increasing moisture within your plot of land, and you are also trapping sediment, so increasing natural manure without applying some of this. So, and that is why we always emphasize for NIMED state level collaboration. We have the capacity to bring some of this solution to all the states in the country, whereby in each test of the sector we provide the focus for that area and link it up with the prevailing socio-economic activities. And for disaster, I will make a case study. We've been having an excellent relationship with FEMA, and we almost exchange information early on in almost every day. And last year, despite the magnitude and intensity of the flood, I'm happy to announce that Abuja FCT recorded 0 casualty last year. And so we also want states to also copy this case, the case study of Abuja FEMA is an excellent one for replication. And by the time we do this, and it is at no cost to the state governments, we always write, we always invite them, so we can provide this document, and at the federal level we're able to translate it to 3 major languages, and like for Jigawa we can even translate to Fulfulde some of this document, and we can engage also in some roving community level workshop with some of the farmers who've been intervening, but through projects. And you know, projects have limitations because they are targeting certain communities. But if state government opens up their arm, we'll be able to do this. And we utilize the weather climate conditions better. And for even these flood waters, we will come up with better solution in utilizing, because we have seen countries whereby some, in Netherlands, some of them are, the location, they are 5 meters below sea level, and they're able to put their design of infrastructure and even their farming activities to align to that.
Well, as you speak of that, I'm certain that Honorable Sami Grubia would be interested in that. You're talking about places that are below sea level, and they are able to plan, and Bayelsa, of course, you've had that kind of collaboration.
You can have dry settlement and wet settlements.
Right. What's your response to that, Honorable? Okay. If you can hear me, what's your response to what DG NIMED has just said, given the situation of Bayelsa? No, I'm not sure you can hear me. All right. Well, we'll return to FCT, Emergency Management Agency. Well, a kind of endorsement here you're getting from the NIMED DG. But how beneficial has that been to your activities?
No, honestly, it has been very beneficial. I must thank the DG NIMED for really giving us all the support. You know, FCT is a very critical state compared to other states, and this is the seat of government, and that is why we don't sleep. We ensure that whatever information we have, we utilize it properly. But the only way is to sensitize the public, let them know their responsibility. It is a two-way traffic. Government cannot do it alone. And if you take the disaster management, it is bottom up. Now you have to start from the scratch. The local emergency management committee must be very effective, and then the state emergency management committee must be very effective, like the FEMA we are. And we hardly call NEMA to come and intervene, because we have never been overwhelmed. I don't think we can get to that level. So with all the infrastructures, we have the manpower, we do training, and we respond to the early warnings that we are getting from NIMED, definitely, and we make good use of it by sensitizing the public. So that has been giving us a great success in our own management of flooding in the FCT. And apart from that, like I said, and I will continue to say, but because Abuja is well planned, and you cannot come and change the plan overnight, and you cannot come and allow anybody to block the waterways or build on the green area or the other areas, the sewer line. So definitely anybody who tries to do that will get his property removed. Initially, you have to give notice. Before the notice elapses, the man will run quickly to the court and get court injunction, and then the entire public will be suffering. We discovered that we were doing a very wrong approach. There is no need, when somebody has blocked the waterways that can cost the life of the resident of the FCT, then you start giving him notice to remove all those things. Meanwhile, he will not remove. And you just heard of a building collapse yesterday in Abuja. The building, just during the holidays, the Salah holidays, that is when the owner started putting the construction after getting a failed result of integrity of the building, because the building was there. And look at it, about 9 people will have lost their lives. If not, we rescued 9 people. We finished the rescue mission just today. So within a long period of holidays, you see a structure in the FCT. And if it is a bungalow, you will see even with roofing and other things. So that is why every now and then, and most of such people who find out that they are building without approval, and they build on a place that are not supposed to be built. So you can't allow such people to block the waterways or to build on the sewer lines, and then the general public will now get affected.
Well, let me come to the governor on this matter. Enforcing the law, making sure people adhere strictly to guidelines. It's seen as a very difficult thing to do in this country because there are political considerations. For instance, it's said that when it's close to elections period, governments are unwilling to take a hard line because you're thinking about the votes that are going to come in here. How difficult is this for you to balance your need to get the votes of the people, to do what is right to enforce rules and regulations, and even after the elections, there are cases where governments have come down hard and they say, well, we'll wait for you for the next 4 years and see what happens.
Well, yes, that is, but it depends on the leadership actually. You see, the most important thing is, yeah, of course there are consideration that, okay, if you do something, when it comes to the election, people will use that against you. But you see, the most important is your conscience. When your conscience is clear on whatever you do, you just go ahead and you know that your conscience is clear, you are doing it in the interest of your people. Just go ahead and do it. Because you are doing it in the interest of the majority, not the few ones that will complain, the politician. Now let me give you a clear example of what happened just last week. Last week in Jigawa State, we had a problem during the transition, just between the transition, the change of button. Some people use that opportunity to issue out grazing lands for farmers so that people will start farming, to do this, to do this. Well, we realize that most of the people that have done that are politicians. We issue a clear statement that all those land that has been issued has been taken away. They have been revoked because they are not in the interest of the people. So we revoke them, and it stands that we revoke them because you need to balance between the security and the interest of politician. Allowing that to continue, you are inviting insecurity, and that we are not ready to do that. So it's always you need to balance the interests of your people, and you are looking at the interests of the majority, not the few ones that will want to serve their own interest. No, you are serving the interests of the majority, and based on that, you just go ahead and take a decision that is good for your people.
Well, let's see if we can return to Yenagoa and find out if Honorable Sami Grubia is with us there. The matter of enforcement, adhering to guidelines and you know, to the letter, strict adherence to guidelines. How would you fare on that from the point of view of Bayelsa?
It has been very, very difficult to do that because of we don't know what are the mentality of the people. When it comes to a situation where it is a matter of life and death, and even when you're trying to tell them things and steps they need to take that will assist them and help them, it shows a lot of resistance from them. And it has been really, really difficult to, more especially for builders, more especially those constructing houses on canals, and when your city is not well planned, we noticed that, but when the governor came on board, he decided to revamp the, we call it CCDA, Capital City Development Authority, to see how they can go to using the planning map of the city, to see how they can, for those that are built on canals. It has been very difficult because some of them are close to even the authorities that be, and at times it is challenging to take that kind of decision to say you have to demolish somebody's house because for the interest of every other person. But we try as much as possible to encourage builders, more especially building on canals, or even generally any part of the state, to seek approval from the relevant authorities so that we don't have this issue of enforcing laws after people must have spent a lot of money trying to put up structures and other things, and you try to demolish because you want to enforce something that is beneficiary to others. It's really painful, but it's a hard decision to take, and you have to take it for the interest of the public. It's really painful, but there is no, just like His Excellency said, it has been really difficult, but you need to, for the interests of the public and for the safety of everybody.
Abuja here. DJ Naimet, you started off your comments talking about the effects of El Nino. Temperatures are expected to go up, and in fact in parts of Europe now we've seen extreme temperatures, the heat wave. Now, drawing attention to the question of climate change, as we begin to wind down this program, what do we look at in terms of how Nigeria keys in with the international focus on addressing climate change?
Yeah, I can say Nigeria is a signatory to all the conventions, including the Paris Agreement, and we've been very responsive. We now have a National Climate Change Council at the federal, at the presidency, and then also we have relevant other stakeholders. And the issue of climate change is about, I used to mention these three words: adaptation and mitigation, and then unfortunately suffering. So the more you do the mixture of adaptation and the mitigation, the less the suffering. And I think we're doing pretty well, but we need to do more, especially with regards to adaptation, because based on our 130-year record, we've seen local evidence of climate change in the country at the community based on all the eco-climatic zones of this country. And we also came up in collaboration with some researchers across the universities with localized solutions in agriculture, water resources, DRR environment, including constructions. So how we can adapt to these changes, because the problem of climate change is that some of these gases, they have more than 500 years lifespan, and we emit more than 13 billion cubic tons of this into the atmosphere. So even if we stop emission at zero, which is not possible, the climate will continue to change in the next 50 years. We've seen increasing heat waves across the country. Areas like Lokoja, Mina, Adamawa, including Abuja, are getting hotter, both day and night, including most of the southern states. And we are also seeing proliferation of climate-induced diseases, meningitis, malaria, cholera, measles, and some of this. And that is why we've been issuing climate and health focus with the Federal Ministry of Health and also NCDC. But we need a lot of collaboration, especially vertical collaboration with state governments, because that is where all the adaptation and the mitigation actions should be implemented. And I know Nigeria, we have a sound national adaptation plan. And also based on what we even plan to control the emission of these gases. So with regards to energy and also infrastructure. So but it narrows down to implementation at the state levels, and a very effective collaboration is very much needed, and we want state governments to see the federal layer as a very interesting partner. We have very interesting policy documents, action plans that could be downscaled and implemented, and we also get feedback in that process, and we get capacity built, and states could be on their own doing most of this. I've seen a scenario in Europe recently during a high-level visit whereby civic protection starts from community to its state, and then national, and then to Europe zone. So with that, you now have what you call operation room, and I'm happy to mention that based on that collaboration, we now have ECOWAS operation room established in Nigeria, and also Nigerian Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, is also planning to have that. And with that, we have a blackboard whereby we have all the states same as, all the ADPs on the board, and then at the federal level, NIMET, NISA, and all of us will be talking to each other on real time and passing information and also getting feedback.
Okay, let's see if we can get this call through. It's been a very quiet night on the phones, but there's a caller on the line who's been trying to get through. If you can hear me, yes, please introduce yourself and just tell us your name and go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening. Just tell us your name and go ahead.
I am Kenneth.
Okay, Kenneth, go ahead.
I am Kenneth from Lagos. I am Kenneth from Lagos.
Yes, go ahead, Kenneth. We can hear you.
What is happening in Nigeria? Most of the so-called professionals. I am speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes.
What is we have in our most of the so-called professionals we have in our ministries and agencies. They are not ashamed of themselves. They are not ashamed of themselves. Imagine somebody that's been an environmentalist, and there's a water position that is happening, threatening the state. He cannot find a situation of it. They are not serious. What they want is that this time January will come up, which is dry season. They will not do anything. They will just relax and wait. The federal government will push out billions. They share it and put it to themselves. We are tired of all this charlatan. We are tired of all this charlatan. The best most of them didn't know what Tinubu is doing. This administration is coming out to just have charlatans. We are tired of all this charlatan. All these praise fingers. How can somebody come up and call yourself a professor? You don't know, you can't find a solution for what is happening in your country. For the past 10 to 3 years, you are there, and you call yourself a professor.
Oh, well, Kenneth. Hello, Kenneth. Well, I think you put the point there. You lay the blame squarely at the doorsteps of the professionals. And, well, you haven't said anything about attitudes as well. Even the people themselves, the people who refuse to comply with simple guidelines. Well, it's all part of what we're talking about. All right. Thanks for calling in anyway. We're wondering at some point in time that it had been such a quiet night. I think some issues with the phones were supposed to come on in. But do try in the next few minutes we still have here. You can still get your views across. But at this point, we'll begin to wind down by speaking to our guests and asking them to avail us of their closing thoughts on the subject matter, the way back from the effects of climate change and of course the preparations to be certain that nothing goes wrong this time around, that we don't witness the kind of disaster that we saw last year. Yes, another quick call on the line. Let's take this one. Just introduce yourself, tell us your name, and go straight to the point. Thank you. Hello. All right, fine. So let's go over to Yenagoa and speak with Honorable Sam Igrubia. Your closing thoughts.
Well, thank you for being on the program for almost 2 hours, and I hope that we will continue more discussions on this platform and until the floods are here. But my closing remark right now is the floods will surely come from the prediction. Early preparation is the key. Why we are also, as a state, trying to put, ourselves together to see how we can reduce the effect of the flooding. I will also use this opportunity to also appeal to NEMA, our big brother. Based on the experience we had last time, at a point we had some confronting issues. Relief materials they were supposed to bring at a particular time was not brought at that time, and we were experiencing things we didn't actually need at that time, which was non-food items. As at that time, the flooding was very high. We were expecting food because we were having serious shortage of food in Yenagoa. I hope we have learned from that scenario and that situation. And I will appeal to NEMA and any other interventionist body or agency that need to assist the states one way or the other should begin early enough, not when we are at the peak of the flooding, is when we try to reach out to. So for now, they can begin to push in non-food items. No matter how little, it will go a long way for us because we too are also preparing. Just like we always say, the bulk of it rests on the state. And so whatever any agencies are bringing in should come on time, more especially non-food items now. And maybe towards the peak of the flood, we can also get in food items to support whatever we are doing at the home front. That's my parting gift.
Okay.
And I hope and pray that we will collaborate just the way we've been doing.
Okay.
I also want to use this opportunity to specially thank the DG NEMA for doing a wonderful job, and also thank my governor for his proactive measures that he has put in place. I hope and pray that we will weather this storm.
All right.
And one day, flooding will be a thing of the past.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Sam Igrubia, Chairman Bayelsa Emergency Agency, who joined us via Zoom from Yenagoa. We thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Right. For the DG of the Federal FCT, Federal Capital Territory Emergency Management Agency.
Well, thank you very much. Mine is to appeal to the 3 tiers of government, both the state, the federal, and the local government, to take disaster management as a very serious business, because we are paying lip service to, in some cases, to especially issues of flooding, which has come to stay. And that is why sometimes I used to ask myself, is flood a natural disaster? because if you have not done what you're supposed to do, definitely flood will come. But if you do what is supposed to be done environmentally, you will find out that you will not notice any disaster. The water will come and pass to its own point. So in most cases, we only come to remember flooding when it is raining. That is all. And the planning is not done. So I'm appealing to all the state governments, especially the state emergency management agencies, to be on their toes immediately the cessation of rainfall so that they can start planning and then get people enlightened, educate them on what to do and what not to do. We need to know a lot before, during and after the flooding. And so this is a responsibility, and it is a two-way traffic, like I said. The communities also, the citizens have to do their own role, because if you don't change your habit of dumping refuse indiscriminately, building indiscriminately, and then throwing so many things on the way, definitely you are inviting flooding. So we need to change our attitude. There must be attitudinal change. We must accept the fact that climate change is real, because what has been happening now have not been happening before. So we need to believe that, and the weather dramatically has changed, especially like the DG Naimel said, look at the weather in Abuja has changed. When I was looking at the weather yesterday, is almost, it has passed. You look up Jos, now you see just about 30 something. So it is really real. So we need to retake disaster management seriously, and federal government can even put it in the developmental plan, so that at least we'll be having a lot of support, like His Excellency that is calling for support, so that the state will be integrated into a singular effort that will be taken annually, so that we mitigate flooding.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Abbas Idris. Thank you. Dr. Kana.
In conclusion, my take home now is from the suggestion provided, like for instance the issue of the white settlement and then the black settlement. Why it has not been adhered is because of three things. Either you look at the flooding from river flooding or the issue of flooding. Number one is your education, issue of poverty, and then discipline. Then having said that, there should be more interagency collaboration, in the sense that flooding is multidisciplinary, and flooding is not in the exclusive, is in the concurrent list. What happens in Sokoto now, or in these countries that are up, that are part of Nigeria, eventually all this water will eventually fall to Bayelsa. So there's a need for multi-sectoral collaboration. Then having said that, if we look at the flood of 2012, which Lokoja, which more likely the datum, recorded about 12.8. Last year, that of 2022, recorded about 13 point something. And within the period, last year and now, NISA has installed a lot of conventional gauges in some of the major rivers in the country. So it is a reference point. If you try to cross such kind of area, red light automatically is going to consume you. So the advice is that we have to adhere to some of these fiscal structures, some of these reference material that have been installed in most of the major rivers. And we expect that states should also key into that to put into their micro rivers.
Thank you so very much, Kana Ahmed Abubakar, the geologist. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you once.
And Professor Matazu, one quick word before we come to
I want to appreciate especially His Excellency, but it shows high level of commitment, and we really need this. For us in NIMET, weather is everything, and then it influences all the sectors, and we want Nigerian citizens to take weather forecast, climate prediction very, very serious, and especially we've graduated from providing simple forecast to impact-based forecast, whereby you have the parameter and then you have the potential impacts, and then with the advisories, and all these are very pertinent.
Thank you so much. And Your Excellency, you get the last say in this matter.
Well, I think it has been a nice time today, but I think my closing remarks is that this issue of flooding should be taken seriously by everybody. You see, this is issue of climate change. It's real and it will continue to happen. We will try as much as possible to do our best to mitigate it, but you cannot stop it completely. So there is need for collaboration. The federal government must understand the impact of this is affecting the whole country. Now, let me give you a clear example. Now, the committee we set in Jigawa State have given us recommendation for short-term, medium-term, and long-term recommendations. On our own, we can do able to do the short-terms, which we are doing now. The medium-term, we can do part of it, but the longer-term is something that requires construction of dams, construction of which is very, very capital-intensive. It can only be done in collaboration with the federal government. So I think the federal government need to understand that the earlier it brings on state to sit on the table and find a lasting solution to flooding in Nigeria, the better for all of us. Because the issue is there will be food insecurity in this country. Now, for example, last year, 2022, in my state, at least 400,000 hectares were lost to flooding. 400,000 hectares. And this has pushed people to the fact that they don't even want to go for farming during the rainy season because they consider it as total loss. And because of that, that means 400,000 is not is lost. So what do you expect? Food insecurity. Now, also, now the other aspect is that now with the recent fuel increase, now people cannot afford to do the dry season farming because of cost of fuel is too much. So where are we? So the earlier we understand that this is a national issue and we come together to find a solution to it, the better for all of us. Thank you very much.
And we would also like to thank you very much for honoring our invitation to be on this program. Well, thank you so much, I guess. And that's our program today. Thank you for watching. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Continue to stay safe.